I'd like to read a passage from Rays of the One Light, which Swami Kriyananda wrote. This is the secret of right action. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that Martha and Mary. Jesus, visiting the home of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet, absorbing his divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guests and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "thou art careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable and not, on the surface of it, spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he always was of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees to work for God or to spend all one's time in prayer. It concerns rather the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, "Martha, you're doing too much." He told her, rather, "You are letting your work affect your inner peace." That was the contrast. Not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Well, I am very happy to be serving with you. We had Rajasi Day here at Expanding Light today, and Dharmarajan said that you had Seva at the center in Chennai. So it is a good day all around the world to serve and to work with this awareness that it is only the Heavenly Father, the Divine Mother that we are serving. It is, in the modern world, more and more rare to live in the consciousness that God is the doer, God is the object of our service, God is performing the service. And this is what, as disciples, this reading is asking us to do. Master's foremost disciple was Rajarsi Janakananda. And it's interesting for me to think that in the past he was Nakula and lived with Master as one of the Pandavas in India. And then he was born in America, in Louisiana, in the southern United States, and then met with his guru in Kansas City, Missouri, in the middle of the country, and served Master as a businessman, as a very successful businessman, which is very relevant to all of us. We're all very successful businesswomen and businessmen now, and we all make lots and lots of money, and we have huge companies, and all this goes on. But the relationship with the Guru doesn't change. And this was the story of Jesus with Martha and Mary. He didn't want Martha, to not serve, but he didn't want her to lose her peace and to lose the thought of God. If she was thinking, I'm serving God by making this food, then Jesus would not have corrected her. And similarly with Yogananda, the reason that he loved Rajasi's service was that Rajasi thought of God all the time. When Master and Rajasi got together, Rajasi went to a lecture by Yogananda, and then they went back to the hotel, and Master taught Rajasi Kriya, and he went into Samadhi immediately and had 6 hours of Samadhi. So this was good. And we looked to that, but then Master said, I don't want you to leave your job. I don't want you to leave your position as the CEO of insurance, banking, real estate, all these industries. Rajasi was a very highly placed businessman. He said, I don't want you to leave your job because you have Samadhi. I want you to serve in your job with the consciousness of God and meditate every day, do Kriya, go into Samadhi every day, and then come out and live in the world and serve, because you will be an example for generations to come. Not only in the United States, but also in India and the whole world. This was the mission that Master was bringing. And this is our challenge, is to live in the world, do our duties, but realize that it's God that's doing everything through us. I've been very blessed in this life, because like Dharmarajan and Dharmini, Nayaswami Maria, my wife, and myself, we've been with Ananta for 40 years, 45 years. So we are always working for God. And we know that God is the doer. But I've also had to have private businesses to help Ananda, and I always have to think, it's God is doing this. Each of us as disciples, we have to construct a consciousness in our day-to-day life in which it's karma yoga, not business. It can look like business. We can go to the office, Rajasi wore a suit, and he went to the office, and he did all these things, but he never thought that he was the doer. He knew that God is doing this through me. God is using this intelligence to make these business decisions. And I've been very lucky, because in all the professions I've had for Master at Ananda, I've always tried to make a scenario or a way of looking at my situation so that I saw God as the doer. If it's building, then it's the intelligence that designs the building. It's the power that moves the building materials. It's the thought of providing a house for people if we're building a house, or an office if we're building an office, or if we're lucky, building a temple. Because I worked for a company for many years, and we were a steel company, but we had a customer, a client, and he was building the churches. So we built a synagogue for the Jewish people. We built a Baptist church for the Christian people. The only Hindu temples I got to build were here at Ananda, but I got to build temples for people, and Master gave me this blessing that even though I was a builder, I was building for God. And then when I built a house, I thought, well, I'm building it for God in the form of this family or that family, and I'll do my best, but the whole time I'm building it, I want to keep my mind on God. Each of us have to do that. If we're If we're a parent, we have to think of our children as a gift of God. If we're a business person, we have to think of our business. What service does our business provide? And Rajarshi showed it can be anything. He had insurance. He had agricultural lands. He helped to hook up the farmers with the land, and they would buy it and farm it. So there's no occupation that we have. Computers. Dharmarajan knows much more about computers than I do, but he helps me. This is God helping God. And it's good that he was here, because if I had to hook up the Skype, we wouldn't be seeing each other. We'd just have to meditate and do the service in that way. But we need to construct in our own minds and hearts a way in which it is God that we are serving. And right now, Maria and I grow food for the Expanding Light guests. So when we're growing the food, we're thinking of the guests who will eat the food. And will they feel Master's love if we pray over the plants? So we pray over the plants all the time. We chant, we bless the plants, we om, every plant, om, om, om. So that when the food grows, and it goes to the Expanding Light, and it goes to the market at Ananta, or it goes to the grocery store down the street, then the people who take in the food will, on some level, feel Master's blessings. It'll say Ananda, so that's a hint, but most people, there's so many names of farms, they don't pay attention really to that. But they maybe can feel it. And when you build a building, I like to think that the buildings that we build they have the vibration of God. It's subtle, but it's there. The computer programs that we write, the whatever we do, if we sweep, when we sweep the walkway or we sweep something, it's the cleanliness will remind people, uplift their consciousness. Remember, after Yogananda went into Samadhi, Sri Yukteswar said, okay, let's sweep the walk. Let's clean up. Don't get too overdrunk with ecstasy. Much work remains. So Sri Yukteswar was training Yogananda for his mission. And each of us is being trained by Master for our mission. Our real mission is self-realization. That's all we're really here for. But if we use every moment that we work and serve, for our seva, for our karma yoga, for all the things that we do, if we make that a part of our sadhana, then we'll feel when we go to meditate, and try this out, but at the end of the day, if you've been thinking about God, or trying to think about how are you serving God all through the day, when you go to meditate at night, I say that your meditation will be much deeper. And I've been performing this experiment since I was a teenager, so I know it works. If I think at the end of the day of the work, or how that customer isn't nice, or how this company is more fun to deal with, or that one is, I get tired. Because the ego constricts the flow of divine energy. And if you think of God in some form, and it really calls on each of us to be creative. You have to make up a movie script in which that's God, and you're serving God, and you're cooking for God, and you're answering the phone for God. We used to have a bookstore in Sacramento, California, and it was called East West, and we sold books on the teachings of the great religions of the world and ways that people improve themselves. So customers would come in. So we would play a game, and we would say that the staff would say, everyone who comes through the door is Babaji, disguised as some young lady, as some old man, as some grumpy customer, being mean and rude, to try to see if our inner peace is strong. And so we would try to be happy and joyful and friendly and loving and serviceful to every customer, because it's Babaji. And it was really fun because you had to do it. So whatever, you have to construct some way of thinking, and you can do japa, you can do mantra, you can chant, but you may have to, for example, if you are an accountant, you have to use those numbers as an incarnation of harmony and balance. If you're good with numbers, you can see just the balance in it all. And that's harmony, peace and harmony, coming through those numbers. So every one of us, it's going to be different for every one of us. If you're a taxi driver, everyone in the back of that taxi is the guru. And you're going to serve them and get them. And of course, I think for many years I got to live with Swami Kriyananda, and I would get to drive Swami Kriyananda, so it's easy for me to think of driving. I got to drive Jyotish and Devi this week, and I was thinking, I'm driving Kriyananda. It was Jyotish and Devi, but I was driving Kriyananda and Yogananda around the city, around Northern California to go where we have to go. So we have to construct that, and then watch what happens. At the end of the day, we then put down the form, we close the eyes, and we have only the light of God. Then we do our Kriya Yoga, we practice pranayama, we interiorize, we go into that light, and we see that the light that's here was all around us all day. It was in the building, and it was in the customer, and it was in the children at the school if we're teachers. It was in the our patient if we're a doctor or a nurse. It was in the healing if we're in a medical situation. It's there. It's all around us. That's why Master loved Rajasi so much, is Rajasi never lost consciousness of God. And he was always with God in his mind. And then he would meditate, do his kriyas, and just soar in light. There's a great story about Rajasi. This was after Yogananda passed, and he would go to the board of directors of Self-Realization Fellowship meeting. They would have annual meeting. And if any of you are on a board of directors, you have the report from the accountant. And they read, this is how much money we made this quarter. And so Rajasi was sitting at the meeting, and he has his eyes closed. So everyone thought Kriyananda was there. He thought, Rajasi's probably in samadhi, he's probably not listening to this. So the young accountant was reading number after number. This is how much money we spent, and this is how much this cost, and we did this, and this quarter, on and on and on. And Rajasi didn't say anything. He was just sitting there in samadhi. And then the accountant read a number, and Rajasi said, that number, it's wrong. And the young man looked and, oh, I made a mistake. He read the wrong number. Rajasi was totally conscious of the numbers. As long as the numbers were correct, they were in harmony, and they didn't disturb his samadhi. But when the wrong number came, that's not in the harmony. And so he noted and so he helped the young man read the correct numbers. His job is to read the numbers. Rajasi's job is to take it in and blend it all together. That's what we want to do. This is the way that Kriyananda went. You know, Kriyananda would say, I never wrote any books. I never composed any music. It all was given to me by Master. He didn't see himself, the ego, or the Kriyananda as the author, because Master just gave it to him. Swami Kriyananda would say, I need a melody. And he would go over to the keyboard, and he would ask Master at the point between the eyebrows, Master, I need a melody. It's a slightly sad melody, but it also has an underlying divine joy. He knew what he wanted, and he would ask very clearly, and he would immediately get that. It would just come to his mind, and he would play it, and he would write down that music. Because he was a musician, he was a composer, but most of all, he was a disciple of a great guru. And so he would ask the guru, Each of us is a disciple of a great guru, and we have to ask the guru, please help me. I ask Master all the time for help with everything. I always ask him because I don't know how to do anything. I know that Master knows how to do everything. Why not ask him to do it? Why not ask him to help me? It is true that in the areas where we have training and we have an expertise and we have experience, the answers are going to come more clearly. But in the last analysis, the master of the self is the master of all. If we are like Rajasi, we will know everything in any field. And Kriyananda used to know things in fields that were outside of his training just by divine intuition. But in the fields where he was trained, music, editing, writing, lecturing, yoga, photography, singing, and acting, playwright. I don't have enough fingers. We'll have to stop there. But he would know. And I would, when I was I used to fix tractors, I would ask Master, how do I fix this tractor? And I would just know, oh, this shaft is too long. Push the bearing back. Take the bearing out. Push this over here. This is the problem over here. With the farm, we have 30 crops. I have to ask Master about each one. I don't know what's wrong with the tomatoes. And then Master says, oh, too cold, too hot, something like that. In each of your work, we all have areas where we've been trained, we've worked. And we can ask the Guru, please help me. What we don't want to do is lose our peace. Martha lost her peace. She was excited and cooking. She was cooking for her guru. Of course she was excited. That's okay. But Christ wanted her, be calm. Be joyful. You probably all know this story. Yogananda was cooking in Los Angeles. And one lady wanted to help him clean the dishes as he went. So Master was cooking Indian food. And Master was a very good cook. And so he was cooking. And the lady thought, I'll help Master clean the dishes. Well, the more she wanted to help and thought of it as work, Master kept dirtying dishes so fast. He would dirty this pot, use it once, and he'd start flipping it over, and the dishes were piling up, and the poor disciple was like, oh, Master, what are you doing? And then she got it inside. He wanted her to be calm. At that moment, Yogananda stopped dirtying the dishes, but he just kept cooking with one pot at a time, and it all slowed down. He didn't want her to lose her peace. That's most important. Swami Kriyananda said, I never want to lose my peace, and so I never let my peace be lost. I stay in my center, and each of us has to find the way that works for us. This is what Rajasi did. This is what Sri Yukteswar wanted Master to do. So we're right between Rajasi's birthday and Sri Yukteswar's birthday. Sri Yukteswar is in 3 days, or 2 days for you and 3 days for me. but his birthday is coming, and to just meditate on his consciousness, on that wisdom. Sri Yukteswar's peace was beyond. The Masters live in total peace. And so we need to live in total peace, and we need to make each year more deep through our meditation, practicing calmness at work, practicing joy at work. Whenever you feel unwillingness to do something that you know you have to do, chant a joyful chant and argue with yourself for joy. Make yourself feel, especially things you don't like to do but have to do. Embrace them with joy. Rajasi embraced whatever it was with joy. Sri Yukteswar said, wisdom is the greatest healer. All of our problems come from not remembering that God is the doer, that everything is happening through His grace, and if we can tune into that, then we feel it. Then we feel this is what. So these are things that we can do. And we have time for questions and answers. Maybe we can do that and see what we need to talk about.
1 second, Prasanna. Let me turn the volume up. Actually, I have a question. Agnalange?
Hiding.
No. Mulavanga. There we go. Yeah. No, because we don't know if he's off to the side making faces. Okay, sorry, Prasanna.
I had a question, but the entire satsang was about it, so it's quick answered. I was going to ask how do we keep our mind here between the eyebrows and think of God while we are not meditating. But I did not know the entire satsang was there about that topic, so thank you for that.
You know, it gets easier because it becomes a habit. And so as we focus here and use japa or mantra or techniques, then it becomes habitual to be centered here and to feel from here, and it gets easier as we go.
Okay. Ilango, yes.
Thank you for the wonderful pointers in the satsang. It was very useful. I have a question. That is, when you work in a team and somebody says something or adds something which triggers the ego and makes us off center, and even though we want to be there in our center too, but that moment pushes you away. So, and entire things go vary. So, how do we come back at that moment? And it takes for me days to come back sometimes.
One thing we can do is to use the throat center and the calmness there. And sometimes what you can do is bring your consciousness, tense and relax in the fifth center, and feel the calmness there, and try to let go of that agitation. Whatever the person said, whenever you're working with, because Master's always going to send us people that are going to poke us so that we try to lose our peace. But he only sends us those so that we can be calm and let it go by and not react to it. So one thing I found, when the emotional reaction comes into the process with the team or with just individuals, is to just tense the fifth center and relax and come into that calmness. Think of Shiva sitting there without any effect or any resistance to the outside world. Shiva is so centered in the throat, so calm that nothing touches us. And try to go there and just observing it, even for you to observe that for a few days you're off center is a good step, because you're differentiating complete calmness from slight agitation, minor agitation, a little teeny bit of ripples in the calm ocean of joy in the heart. So you're there, and just practice it, and it's, you know, it's an experiment. It's a fun thing to do, to be a disciple, because every situation is new, and Master will always give you things that push it a little further until we are Rajasi, until we're totally calm and centered under all circumstances. We get there.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yogini?
It might be a silly question, but when you want all of us to be centered, but when there's a lot of happiness, I tend to be really happy. But when there's a lot of sadness, I don't tend to be too sad. So how do I not make myself overly happy and keep myself centered?
There's nothing wrong with being happy. It's good to be happy. But what we eventually do is to feel the happiness, the current of happiness, the upliftment of happiness in the spine, and we feel the happiness beyond the conditioned happiness of the emotions. If the emotional happiness goes out from our spine, then it starts to diminish. But if we bring it up into the point between the eyebrows and let it push our joy, the Ananda, up, then the happiness is good. Kriyananda was happy almost all the time, and Yogananda was happy all the time. In fact, he wrote a book, How to Be Happy All the Time. So it's important to be happy, because in the last analysis, the joy of God is true happiness. And so take whatever, and sadness and disappointment is an aspect of the world, but it's in contradistinction to the joy of God. So we watch our emotions from a place of ever new joy, of ever calm peace, shanti, at the point between the eyebrows. And Kriyananda loved to laugh, and Yogananda loved to laugh. Rajasi was always beaming with joy. He was always standing next to Master, and he just had this big smile on his face, because he was feeling the Guru's consciousness and true joy. So don't feel that there's a saying, a sad saint is a sad saint indeed. So luckily it's not our path to be not happy. we're a happy all the time Sangha. So we have tragedy, terrible things happen to us. When Anandamoy Ma died, I was with Kriyananda. He was just crying. He lost his mother. Anandamoy Ma was like his spiritual mother. He was sad, but inside he was rejoicing that Ma dropped the body. So he never inwardly lost his true joy. But in the human condition, when Ma died, Kriyananda was weeping. He was reading letters that she had written to him, and he was so touched by emotion he couldn't read anymore. But he gave them to Devi. And I thought, that's not going to work at all. Devi just started crying too. We didn't get anywhere with that. So Swami made a mistake. He could have given it to Jyotish maybe, but I don't think so. Jyotish would have broken down too. It was too sad. They were beautiful letters from Anandamoy Ma to Swami Kriyananda. And it's human. We're human beings. And that's why Master wouldn't be, that's why he wasn't when Sri Yukteswar left. He couldn't be there. When Sister Gyanamata left, he couldn't be there. Because Master was a master and a human being. Or he was a master playing the part of a human being. So accept that. That's okay. But the calmness inside, the joy inside, never leaves. As we practice meditation, as we practice Kriya, we find that ever new joy.
Yes, Durga?
I always keep myself happy and laughing all the time. People in the family don't like me laughing all the time. They always say, how can you ever laugh like this? How can you ever smile like this? How can you be happy all the time? So I don't know how to handle this.
It's a but it's a good question, because what you saw with Kriyananda and Jyotish and Devi and Rajasi and Master and all the yogis is that they behave appropriately in an outer sense to what is the correct decorum. And this is respect for the other person's consciousness. We don't laugh when a mother comes to us and says, "Oh, my baby just died." We don't say, oh, it'll reincarnate, it's okay. We don't talk about that. We say, Mother, you've lost your child. We give them blessing. We give them peace. Maybe we cry too. It's possible. But so Kriyananda would always act appropriately to the situation. But inside, he could see the joy of God. When I saw, on 9/11, when I saw the plane hit the Twin Towers in New York, I was very surprised at myself because I didn't react with sadness or with anger. I reacted with calmness, and I was very surprised. And then I thought, I'm looking at an event. It's a human tragedy. It's a world tragedy. But it will pass and everything will come around. I was very surprised, but then I thought that's why we practice yoga, is to see what's happening. And from that terrible thing, much good has come and many blessings. In every moment, God is present and He's showing both sides to us. Happiness and sadness. Joy and sorrow. But underneath it, in the center of the Sushumna, is joy of God, peace of God, love of God, light of God, Om, power of God. So it's that, the question is, how should we act? We have to act appropriately. We can't be disrespectful of people's sorrow, or if they're caught in Maya, the masters don't laugh at us. They don't say, oh, you're in Maya, you silly disciples. They say, oh, why don't we get out of Maya together? And that's what Master Shrikeshwar, Lahiri Moshai, Babaji Christ brought to us, is these techniques of Kriya so that we can be there. How to be happy all the time, but not to disregard the human condition, to be appropriate, to be a shoulder to cry on if that's what's needed, to be what is needed at each time, and God will guide you. Master was also always appropriate.
Anybody else?
We wanted to ask if there was any news about Jayaram is hearing.
Jayaram's hearing.
Oh yes, we went to a court. Jyotish Devi, Asha, myself, Jayaram's sister, her husband. We went to a federal court, United States federal court, so the high court, and we argued. We had a very good lawyer.
Ananta, why don't you also tell them a little bit, because not everybody.
Okay. Jayaram is a disciple of Master. He's a Kriyaban. He has been meditating for 28 years. He's been in jail for 28 years. He's charged with a murder of a man who wasn't murdered, but who framed it to look like Jayaram committed his murder, and then he took $1 million US and fled to Brazil, and he made it look like he was murdered by Jayaram, and Jayaram was convicted of the murder, even though there's no body, there's no weapon, there's no murder scene. I wish Kartikeyan was there. we wouldn't have had this problem. So anyway, he's been in jail for a long time, and Jyotish 25 years ago tried to feel what was Master trying to do? Why this karma? And what Jyotish said was that Jayaram would have been a very successful businessman and made lots and lots of money, but he wouldn't have sought God. And so God put him in jail, Master put him in jail, so that he would be very serious about his spiritual life. You all are serious, but you don't have to go to jail. Jayaram had to go to jail, but he's become a very deep disciple. Jyotish gave him Kriya in prison. I gave him second Kriya initiation in prison. He practices meditation every day. But we're also trying to see if now he could be released because the trial wasn't fair. So we went to the hearing. We all prayed and asked Master. And the hearing went very good. And we have to wait at least a month and maybe more to hear back because it's an appeals court. It's a very high, it's a federal court. So in India, it will be an all India court, the federal government. So it's we're all praying. Jayaram's attitude is that everything is karma. Therefore, whatever it was in a past life that made this the situation, he accepts it. He's become a great saint in prison. So I told him that Gandhi spent a lot of time in prison. Christ was in prison. A lot of the masters end up in prison, so it's okay. He works every day on his meditation, and he helps people as he can in prison. But he's in prison with very bad people, and yet he doesn't let it affect his peace. So he practices yoga, and it's very inspiring. That's why Jyotish and Devi and Swami Kriyananda wanted him to be let out now. We think it's enough time. But again, we don't decide. It's all Master, it's all the Guru. And for him to hold that in this situation is such an inspiration. We just, we are free, we can go anywhere, but he has to be in prison all the time. But he meditates hours every day, 4 hours a day. He meditates, he does Kriya, second Kriya. He prays and he writes legal briefs, but he realizes that everything is in the Guru's hands for everyone in the world, and we just need to realize that. So his attitude is very good. We're very patient, and we'll see. We don't know what's going to happen. We make a suggestion to Master, but we don't know. We have to act appropriately too.
We continue our prayers.
We will also continue our prayers.
Oh yeah, Dharmarajan wanted to tell you a story that he's in prison with very, very evil men, people that have committed murder and terrible crimes. But somehow, because of his inner strength and dignity, the other prisoners respect him, and they don't ask him to move drugs in the prison or to move weapons. It's known that Jayaram is a yogi, that he doesn't eat meat, that he doesn't we don't use weapons, non-violence, ahimsa. So they all respect that, and they don't ask him to do that. So even among the lowest class of criminal, still the divine resonates, and they come up to his level on some level. They still behave horribly, and I've been there many times to visit him, and it's like any prison in the world where there's murderers and things, but they respect that he has some philosophy, he has some religion that they don't push that. It's really kind of remarkable, because in that way they're respecting Master, and they get good karma for that. It lifts them up to show respect for someone.
Satya?
You had mentioned about Swami Kriya Yoga crying appropriately.
Yeah, crying appropriately.
Yes.
You had mentioned that Swami Kriyananda was showing appropriate behavior when Ananda died.
So he's crying profusely, but inside you say that he's an Ananta.
Yeah.
How do you know that? And also, how will we know when we are like that?
Good question. I know that because I was there with Swami. When Ma died, he asked Maria and I to come down to his house, where there's a little group of us, Jyotish and Devi and Asha and Maria and I and Jaya and Sadhana Devi and a little group of us. And you could feel that Swami was crying because he was sad on the human level. But when you felt him inside, you know, as your teacher, as your, brother disciple, you could feel that it only affected the human shell, and in the Shushumna, in the deep spine, you could feel that unwavering calmness. And when Kriyananda left the body, April 21st, 2013, that calmness became the reality of his vibration around the world. He left the body in Italy, and in Ananda village, I could feel that the Om, the calmness, the center was still untouched, and the body was done. And the event of Kriyananda and the man and the personality and my friend was gone in the body. But the spiritual Kriyananda was not diminished in the least. And you probably felt it in India, because we felt it everywhere in the world, in Chennai and in Delhi and Noida and everywhere, and Assisi, Italy, and Ananda village. There is that part of us, each of us, and we saw it in Kriyananda and we saw it in Rajasi, that is untouched by the human condition. And so when Kriyananda would laugh, there was joy and happiness, but underneath it was a Ananda, divine joy. And you learn to tune into it, and we know it as we go on. That's why I told you the story about September 11th, is I was very surprised. I should have been upset. I should have been, thousands of people died from all the countries in the world worked in that building. But I didn't feel that sadness. I felt Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I felt calmness. I was very surprised. I thought I would feel something else. I thought I would be very ruffled. It wasn't a happy time, but I was watching it on television as if it was. Kriyananda says, look, watch your life like it's happening to someone else. You're watching a movie of your life starring you as the part of Ananta, Nayaswami Ananta. He's a older man, and he's this and that, and interesting fellow, but not so great. Nayaswami is a part of all that is, not a separate entity, and that's the self. The Atman is eternal. We are that. We are that, and you become familiar with it. You're already familiar with it, because when you close your eyes, that light is always the same. It becomes deeper, but your calmness is ever new and ever deeper as we practice, as we go.
Any other questions? I didn't know if you would want to tell the story of, I don't remember the details, but it was in Sacramento. Was it the zoning for the temple or the roof where you had to run around the last minute? And there was
The master?
Yeah.
Okay. Dharmarajan has a question. He wants to tell me to tell the story about when Master came to me and gave me a little pep talk. So I was in charge of this building, the Ananda Mandir in Sacramento, and I needed to have a building permit, and I was the spiritual director of the Sangha, so I was also the builder. So I went and got the permit and everything, and I tore the roof off the building. I had the roof torn off by a company because I wanted to put in skylights. It would make the Mandir way prettier if we had skylights. So I got the permit, and then when I ripped off the roof, the building man said that he needed to have an engineer check the plans. But it was going to rain in a few days. And I said, well, how can you, you can't delay me. I have the roofs off my church. I don't have a roof on the Mandir. And he said, well, it's the way it is. And I said, well, can you help me? And he said, Ananda, is that like Paramahansa Yogananda? And I said, yes. He said, I read the autobiography about 20 years ago. And I said, well, good. And he said, let me see what I can do. So I waited, and then that afternoon, after closing hours, he phoned me back and said, okay, the permit's here, come in the morning and you can have it. You can do the building. So I said, thank you very much. So I walked out of the Mandir, and suddenly Master, I just felt his presence next to me. He was standing, but I was standing up, but he was so big that I only came up to his waist. I was like a little boy, and I felt his arm around me. He put his arm around me, and I felt it just right. He put his hand on my shoulder, and I didn't see him. I just felt him. He was really big. He was just, he was like 20 feet tall. And I was a little boy, and he was just holding me. And he said, Ananta, Ananda is my work. This is my Mandir. I got it. And that's all he said. Yes, Master. Yes, Master. And that's all he said. And he just said it inside my head. I didn't hear the voice outside, but I heard it inside, just with a lot of force, that everything is God's. We don't have to worry. Ananda, whatever happens, this is Master's work. It's not our work. We do have to, clean the Chennai Center and paint, and we have to do all that, but it's not our work. It's His work. It's His building, and He's going to take care of it. And I don't need to worry. Even if I'm in charge, I don't have to worry. So this is good for Dharmarajan to know. This is Master's work. This is Babaji's work. And so I felt that, and I realized that was what we need to remember. If Martha could have remembered that, it's fine. You're doing your best. That's all we have to do. If we just ask God, He'll show us if we need to get better. He'll show us. He's in charge. It's not our work, and therefore our work doesn't ever have to be restless. Rajasi knew that. He was in God, and that's what Sri Yukteswar wanted Master to remember when he went to America, where everyone would be, oh, you have to do this and that, and the culture was different. In 1920, to come to America, it's very different. Now we're a world village. We're all in the same boat now, and we realize we're one family. But in those days, it was very hard to come to America. They were very uptight, and Master had to come. So Sri Yukteswar wanted him to know, this is the Lord's work. Don't worry. Just think about God. Pray to Babaji. Pray to Sri Yukteswar. Pray to Lahiri. Pray to Christ. Pray to the Masters. They're always with us, and everything will go well from there.